David arrived here in aptly 1984, and we immediately were aware that this was to be an experience of reflection and some careful inspection, because we quickly understood that David Watson we learned the details, that high school dropout and editor of The Fifth Estate was coming out to Bloomfield Hills to mix among all the Claymore shop folks that we have here. And so there was not a little watching. Very quickly, it became clear that David's embrace was wide. David never has shrunk from the most daunting of tasks, which just up there with being head of a dean of boys or girls or head of upper school, being the advisor to a newspaper where kids are led to believe that they will be taking on adult roles, and it's a little bit like driver's training with a F-15 or something like that, because there's nothing more vulnerable than having our kids out there riding. So David took on the paper in 1989, and quickly the Crane Clarion rose to a level of success and prominence not to be found in independent school journalism, not to be found anywhere in independent school journalism, except a very, very few of the most venerable and the most exciting journalism schools. David had a big mantle to assume, because the alumni of the Crane and the Clarion and the Crane Clarion are remarkable people, and David quickly assembled the kinds of writers here that would go on to sit at the desks of the most prestigious university and college dailies in the world. And David has seen his progeny go on and do wonderful things. More importantly, though, for me, who has run an upper school and tried to make sure that the school is great, David has defined excellence and greatness, because his classroom extends way beyond our acres. It was David's requirement of himself that the classroom always extend beyond Cranbrook. David is, of course, also a teacher of English and writing, in addition to being a teacher of Spanish. And we quickly learned that to be working with David was to be a companion of his, because all of you he treated as though you were writing together. And David, I thank you. Thank you so much. I thank you for bringing so much talent to the school. I thank you for extending our family, bringing in people from Cranbrook of 30 and 40 and 50 years ago, and making them feel welcome at the school, and creating the next generation of great writers and thinkers. And this is a lot more than a niche here, but this represents only a small piece of the kind of love and the tenderness and the appreciation that we all feel for you. Thank you you so much, David.
Well, I'm overwhelmed. Trying to teach people to put words together to say things that are ineffable, which is just about everything, right? Has been a life project, and when it comes down to it, I'm no better than anybody else at it, probably. So, especially in moments such as this, I'm very grateful to the alumni department, Susan in particular, and to Charlie and others, Arles, who made this graduation year for me to be something really amazing and moving. To see people here dating back years from my experience on the Crane since '89, '90, and others is putting me at a loss. I'll try to say a few words and not talk too long. Charlie, I've probably got less of Winston Smith in me, despite the date, than the savage. And I plan to go do some savage things in my retirement. Many of them at my own desk. Writing the Great American Critique rather than a novel. I never could do anything with that. I was really surprised in 1989 when Arles Seibert asked me to take over the paper. I thought she was trying to get me out of the environmental club, which was causing a lot of trouble. Including Rick Bowdy and me almost getting 20 kids arrested in front of the incinerator. We didn't intend to, but we started thinking if Mr. Watson can do it, why can't I? And I said to her, you know, Arles, my only experience with newspapers has been with underground paper that didn't know any rules, and whatever rules it happened to find out, it broke on purpose. How am I going to do this paper? And she said, I'm not worried about you. You're not going to try to push your ideas on the kids. That's suspicious. I said, who could ever force their ideas on kids? I wouldn't even try. I just tried to be who I was. I didn't hide what I believed. I think that maybe somebody here who knows that if you had conservative ideas, you got hammered for your logic, but also if you had left-wing ideas and your logic wasn't working, I would also challenge you there. And I learned to do the newspaper along with you. As many of you who haven't been here for a while, will see from the new issues in time, my vanity increased even greater than it was. And I decided I was going to try to start winning awards and doing the paper the proper way and make it more professional, and it looks more professional than it did. I don't think the writing is better now than it was. I think the writing has always been great, and Charlie's right. I was coming into a school where writing was very powerful. Cranbrook and Kingswood produced unbelievable writers, and it only could have meant that their teachers were people who took writing seriously and pushed them and encouraged them and inspired them. So it was incredible to go along and run into these people. So for me, it's been an education. It's been a new family, an extended family, something I never imagined. I've said a number of times at events such as this that I came here broke in 1984 after a sojourn in Europe and in search of a job. I thought teaching would be fun. I liked the intellectual stuff. I liked kids. So I took a job, and it was a job. And very soon it became more than a job. It started to feel like a career. People appreciated the things I did that pushed the envelope and encouraged freedom among the kids and a conscience that wasn't imposed but came from within, learning on their own what it meant. and the school appreciated it. I was the resident radical and the resident activist, and instead of getting into trouble, they let me take time off of work to get arrested. There's a Cranbrook a 1A that I'm kind of proud of. You know, we got in Cranbrook history, we got time off from work to get arrested. But beyond that, I learned after a while that it was more than a career, it became an avocation. And you did that. There are so many of you who had the same kind of life-changing, never to disappear effect on me that you say that I had on you. And I'm very grateful for that. And so what became a career and avocation ended up becoming a life. And I'm grateful for that life. And I plan to maintain a connection to you and to this place forever. And so I'm very grateful, and thank you all for this event and for all the gifts that you have given me.
I think it would be wonderful to hear folks just reflect and have memories and tributes. So please, who wants to start out? Nothing needs to be censored.
Just say something. So, Mr. Watson, after working on the Crane.
Tell them who you are and what year, because some people have no idea who you are.
Very fair. I'm Ryan Polk. I graduated class of 2013. I was on the Crane all 4 years, and it was a very interesting time. But after serving for my college newspaper at the university, I was just astounded by how terrible my college paper was and how much better that in my high school was. And it should seem the other way around, but I mean, I would go into that office every time, and the edits, nobody edited the paper at all. There were spelling errors everywhere. They didn't even run spell check, I don't think. But after working in marketing for a year back in the alumni office at the university, I realized that a great love of mine is copy editing. And it's one of my favorite things, and I definitely learned under his stewardship. And whether it was a period out of place, an extra space, or any of that, I always could just zone in on it. But I mean, it just was amazing working under you as our editor, and yeah, I mean, our resident radical is right. But thank you very much for everything you did, and to make this paper great, and to really steward so many people through this school. So thank you, Mr. Watson.
Oh, there you go. Wait. Thank you.
Dorothy Grunis, class of 88.
Speak a little louder. Identify yourself.
Hi, I'm Dorothy Grunis. I'm class of 1988. I bounced around a couple of schools, and no one thought I was going to make anything of myself until I sat down in Senior Watson's Spanish class. And then everything changed, and nothing terrified me. I went through Oxford and MIT and medical school and God knows what else, and not one of those things would be possible without having the one teacher who believed that I could do something. So thank you for giving me this life I have.
Hi, I'm Carmen Chan, and I graduated yesterday. I think what was most remarkable about my time with Mr. Watson, I've been on the Crane all 4 years, hadn't really taken it too seriously until really my sophomore year. The freshman year, he kind of laughed at me for applying for an associate editor position. But you know, serving under him really taught me that one guy really can make a difference. The amount of mentorship that he's had towards all of us really impacted us, not only in the Crane room, but in the classroom and in our lives. Really, he inspired us to be more than what we thought we could be. And I just remember this funny time. I played a sport, and they didn't really like that just because of the lack of commitment that I had been showing, and I hadn't really been doing my edits, and just the quick Watson he pulled me aside and for 3 minutes just scolded me right outside the Crane hallway. And right after that, I really saw that the Crane Clarion was where I wanted to be, and that really inspired me to want to do more. And I thought it was really interesting and inspiring that Watson was able to kind of pull me out of my hole in just 3 minutes of stern talking to, and we all know how scary he can get, even if he's not trying to. So yeah, he taught me mentorship and how important and valuable it is to really see that in a person. And so thank you for all your help over these years, and I'm sure all of us can speak to the fact that you've really changed our lives in one way or another.
I'm Nick Anderson, class of 2008, and I was always really confused why Mr. Watson was here as the radical that he was. Like, we would Google his name and it'd be like, David Watson brought severed pig's head to the Board of Trustees of Wayne State University. And there was a picture of him doing that, and it's like, do you know where you are? And apparently he did, but I'm so grateful that he made the choice to come here. I was on the Crane, I was here for 3 years, I was on the Crane all 3 years. And David Watson was the first mentor I had to tell me to get over how verbose and unnecessarily wordy my writing was. I believe the phrase he used, and many of you perhaps are familiar, was murder your darlings. Because I would have only like maybe 15 column inches, and I would want to put probably like 30 inches worth of content there, and he'd be like, buddy, you have to, like, this is too much, you have to stop. And I'm so grateful that that happened to me then, because in my career in media since then, I think I've gotten a lot better than the 15-year-old I was at writing less. And that might seem like not something to praise, but I'm so glad that David Watson was here to make me a better writer and a better journalist. And I'm sad to see that the students at Cranbrook won't have him in the future, because I wouldn't be the journalist I am today without Mr. Watson. So thank you.
I didn't make up Murder Your Darlings, it's famous. Kill Your Darlings. I want to say that I want you to all know that one of my big achievements was at the end was to find somebody who would really be able to take the reins of the newspaper and continue the tradition. Charlie and Claudia found this guy, and he has an MFA in writing from the University of Montana, a law degree from which will probably come in handy someday on the newspaper, from U of M, and he wanted to teach, and he's been here 3 years as a dedicated teacher, and I just want you to know who he is, and I know I'm embarrassing him right now, but if I can just, Jordan Rawson
Stand
is
up,
doing
Jordan.
Stand up.
Now that I'm standing, I want to just say a few quick things. One is that when I became head faculty advisor of the newspaper last year, I had decided to do a small change to how the final issue gets delivered, or what I thought was a small change. Sent an email off to the other faculty advisors, went and took a shower, and when I came back, I had 4 missed calls from David Watson, 2 voicemails, and an email that just said, "What is your contingency plan? And then you had better rethink this." And I was terrified, a mix of maybe terror and then also anger, but genuinely what I felt was that part of why I love the guy as much as I do is because he's just incapable of indifference. He cares deeply about all of us and about the craft of writing and about journalism. Even though I'm a teacher here, I feel like I'm a student with him. He's taught me more about journalism than anyone else by far. And so I'm really grateful. Also, he has agreed to come back and be an advisor on the Crane, as you may know. So he's not going away, actually. We're making him stay for at least one more year, and hopefully after that as well. But we did want to the faculty advisors and former students of yours wanted to give you this remembrance book. It includes photos and letters, and you're not going away from the Crane, like I said, if you're here to stay. But we're gonna miss you, and we love you.
I love you guys too. Not so many emails.
I have a quick comment. So, my name is Monica Rodriguez. I graduated. Monica Rodriguez. I graduated in the class of 2007, and I echo Nick's sentiments, where I was always kind of surprised that Mr. Watson was here, because clearly he wanted to change the world, and I would have thought that meant more in the trenches. But it wasn't until I became a teacher and I taught in the trenches at a detention center where I realized he had a really good strategy. Because by teaching all of us who go out to the world, he just got all of his ideas in these communities and places he doesn't even know exist. And as a teacher, I really appreciate and kind of recognize the difference that he has made on generations of students and how my students were impacted by him. And so he did. He changed the world through me, and I changed that through my students, and that's how legacies live.
Hi, Nat, CKO7. Almost forget that. So I came from all the way from across the world from Thailand. Thailand. The first day, not the first day, but I remember the first time I came here is junior year. Then I came here freshman year. Came here junior year, and I can't fit in so well. I came from all the way different culture, different language, and I kept exploring the school. And then I stumbled across the Crane room, just looking at it, and then I found this is a cool place. I just want to try it out. So I went in, and after that, it became part of my life. You give me the place to fit in. The senior year, I became the photo editor, and gave me the key to the room. I know I already confessed to you, but I spent so much time in that room, much more than I supposed to be. I even celebrate my own birthday in that room. Like some friend did a surprise birthday party in that room for me, and it was a big step for me to be part of something bigger than myself. And from that, a lot of things happened after I graduated from here, after I learned the experience in that room. And now I start my own company, and I can't be more thankful of what I learned from you. So, thank you.
I'd like to speak for a moment about, my name is Isaiah. I graduated in 2013. I'd like to speak for a moment about the teaching style of Senor Watson. I had him for Spanish my third year, and just an incredible balance of cutthroat, but also compassion. I don't. Any of his students would know about his machete in the class, and it was truly inspiring. He pushed us to the limits of our abilities without making us feel like we were there. Without causing us to feel stressed out about it. And I think that his teaching really inspired me to not only be successful with the Spanish language, but also in other aspects of education. And I really appreciate what you've given to me in education and in viewing the world, and also in developing myself.
Hi, I'm Alden Young, class of 2000, and actually Mr. Watson played a really large role because he had to wear 3 hats for me. He was my advisor, my Spanish teacher when I wasn't very good at Spanish, and he was also my newspaper editor. And I think Mr. Watson gave me something in all 3 of those areas. One, he taught me to love writing and to write publicly and not be afraid of sharing your ideas. He also taught me about politics, and it was something that maybe I didn't understand at the time, but he taught me even writing small essays about Diogenes and these statues. He taught me that the smallest things could be political, like, everything you do, and I became a historian later, so sometimes I'm talking about obscure topics, but I always try to bring them to the present. And later, more importantly, I don't know how Mr. Watson would know what I was up to, even though I would try to not write and be, hiding. He would know sometimes, and he would be able to give me a word of advice or a message. Or one time he told me, after I was acting up in college, that he would tell my mom if I didn't, straighten out. And I was like, how do you know about these things? I'm definitely not trying to tell you. And so those things always meant a lot to me. Thank you again.
So I'm Alex Hyman, class of 2004, and I was one of those conservative students with faulty logic on campus. I was never in Mr. Watson's class, was not on the newspaper, but myself and all the other conservative students on campus knew that the bar to which we had to aspire to one day, maybe it would be beyond our Cranbrook years, but be able to hold our own, was to the bar that you held for all of us. I know Josh Steinman would say that, and I say hello from him to you here as well, and many of us, that you didn't come to anything with indifference, that we all knew that you were the resident radical because you wanted to make a sincere impression, and it did make an impression on all of us. Thank you.
My name is him. Yep. My name is Sharon Wong, and I will be graduating in the class of 2019. And something I'll always remember about Senior Watson is that in the middle of this year, I had wanted to write a fairly sensitive piece. It was very personal to me, but he actually pulled me aside and told me not to write it, which I didn't understand. But something I'll always remember that he told me that day was that as a young writer, it's best to save some of your golden pieces till you're older, and that'll have more power. Something I remember about that is just that you cared about me so much beyond my writing, and I'd always hide behind a piece of paper and a pen. So even though you'll be here next year, that will always be in my heart, so thank you.
Amazingly, I did not come prepared with something to say. I don't know why I didn't think about it. I'm Catherine Schleicher. I'm a class of 2000. One thing I want to say before I thank Mr. Watson for everything is I think we should all thank Marilyn. Oh. When I started working on the Crane Clarion, I became an editor-in-chief at the end of my sophomore year. I spent a lot of time in the office, and I got us an answering machine and a phone, and I would answer it. I loved answering the phone and saying, Crane Clarion. And 9 times out of 10, it would be Marilyn, wondering when Mr. Watson was spent his life there. Yes, exactly. So this is where I'm going. Thank you for sharing this wonderful, inspiring, amazing person with us. I know it was a sacrifice for you, and it was a gift to all of us, and he is a gift to all of us. And I think one of the, I don't know, something that's so amazing is I probably only know like 6 people in this room, but I do feel like we're all in some kind of amazing family, and I think that's because Mr. Watson has this amazing way of seeing, like a lot of you have mentioned, the spark that someone has, and it might be someone who's a great student, or it might be someone who's never opened their mouth in class, and just bringing out the best in everyone and bringing them together. And I mean, my whole life I will write hoping to be the kind of writer that Mr. Watson encouraged me to be. And as many of you know, I became a journalist, and it all started when he wrote something in the corner of my English paper. It made me realize something about myself I didn't even know at the time. And it's very hard to imagine Cranbrook without him here. I'm glad he's staying around for a little longer, but just thank you for giving us so much of yourself. Thank you for sharing him.
The next picture.
There are cookies. It's amazing to hear that testimony, and I know if you're not speaking, if you think, well, I should speak, don't feel that way. For one thing, I shouldn't even be speaking right now, because as Marilyn will tell you, I better tell you before she does, the worst challenge I have had as a writer is to keep it short. And presently, I'm writing something now that probably should have been 600 words, and I'm at 14,000 words. So it's a lifelong struggle. It's like trying to become awakened, right? You have to focus on the goal, or you'll never get up and work on it. But if you focus on the goal, the end point, you don't get there. So we have to live with that. The writing is always another blank page every day, and life is another blank page every day. So life is not ending for me. I'm going to go to my desk, and I am so proud to see the writing that comes across through the email from Catherine and from so many others. Some of the younger writers here, Shira writing at the Crimson right now, and Teddy at Columbia, and Raina at Columbia, and Alia is working now in Chicago, and I'm for missing people, like on at NPR. Forgive me if I've left somebody out. The writing that Gotham does in the law programs. Jimmy Tobias, 06, I think, right? Jimmy 06?
Yes, he is 06.
I've got a story on the cover of The Nation magazine about homelessness and housing, this issue. It's really amazing. And it was in you, and I found the knack to just try to listen to you, and sometimes to yell at you a little, push you. That's a koan too hard, too soft. Probably I was too hard a few times, and you can remind me. And the time's too soft, maybe, but we all continue. Anyway, thanks for coming, and thanks for this wonderful, wonderful day. This is really stunning for me. I didn't expect anything at this level. I know there's love amongst us, and I know how you feel, and you know the feeling is mutual. But it's still amazing to hear it in a venue like this. Anyway, so enjoy the cookies.